Hollywood glitters like a dream until the lights turn cruel. Behind the smiles, awards, and red carpets lies a darker truth. The same world that crowns its stars also loves to destroy them. They were adored, envied, and untouchable, until scandals, betrayals, and lies tore everything apart. These are not just stories of fame gone wrong. They're confessions, broken lives, and careers buried under the weight of their own legends. Who fell from grace the hardest? Who became the villain the world demanded to hate? And who will claim the final cursed spot on this list, the most hated star in Hollywood history? Brace yourself. The countdown begins. 31. Shia LaBeouf. At his peak, Shia LaBeouf seemed unstoppable, a fearless prodigy who could leap from Disney Channel comedy to blockbuster action without losing his edge. His performances in Transformers and Fury made him a household name, and Hollywood hailed him as the rebel actor who refused to follow the rules. His talent felt raw, unfiltered, and magnetic, the kind of brilliance that comes once in a generation. But fame magnified everything, including his demons. What began as eccentric behavior soon spiraled into public chaos, drunken arrests, violent altercations, and disturbing performance art that blurred the line between genius and madness. The collapse became complete when multiple women, including musician FKA Twigs, accused him of manipulation, emotional abuse, and violence. Overnight, the tortured artist turned into Hollywood's latest villain. The backlash was relentless. Studios canceled contracts, fans fled, and his tearful apologies were met with disgust. Even his attempts at redemption through religion and rehab were viewed as performative, another act in a story no one believed anymore. The public had stopped seeing an artist in pain. They saw a man who caused it. Today, Shia LaBeouf's name carries the weight of wasted promise. Once celebrated as the future of cinema, he became a symbol of self-destruction, proof that no amount of talent can survive when the darkness inside outshines the light. 30. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres was once the embodiment of kindness. With her infectious laughter, sharp wit, and groundbreaking representation for LGBTQ+ voices, she turned a daytime talk show into a cultural phenomenon. She danced her way into America's heart, earning Emmy after Emmy and a reputation as television's warmest presence. For years, Ellen stood as proof that you could be both funny and good. Then came the scandal that shattered the illusion. In 2020, reports flooded in of a toxic workplace under her leadership employees, describing bullying, intimidation, and emotional abuse. The revelation felt like betrayal. How could the woman who built her empire on "be kind" preside over cruelty? The contradiction was too glaring to ignore. The fallout was swift and merciless. Ratings plummeted, sponsors backed away, and the Queen of Kindness became the face of Hollywood hypocrisy. Her public apology, meant to heal, only deepened the wounds. People no longer saw authenticity, only performance. When her show ended, Ellen tried to leave on her own terms, but her legacy was already rewritten. Once a pioneer for acceptance, she now stands as a reminder of how quickly goodness can turn to pretense and how even laughter can hide something rotten underneath. 29. Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato's rise was built on raw talent and resilience. From her Disney Channel beginnings to powerful hits like Skyscraper and Sorry Not Sorry, she was celebrated as the voice of survival, the girl who faced addiction, mental illness, and came back stronger every time. Her openness about trauma made her a symbol of honesty in an industry of masks. But somewhere along the way, that honesty turned into exhaustion for her and everyone watching. Demi's endless cycle of relapse, public breakdowns, and online feuds made sympathy hard to sustain. Fans who once saw bravery began to see manipulation. When she publicly attacked other artists, mocked cultural traditions, and constantly redefined her identity for headlines, the narrative shifted from inspiring survivor to attention addict. The backlash hit harder than any relapse. Social media turned cruel, tabloids feasted, and even longtime supporters admitted they had grown weary. Instead of healing, every comeback felt like performance, every confession, a publicity stunt. Her story, once empowering, had become exhausting. Today, Demi Lovato's fame exists in a strange limbo, half redemption, half resentment. She remains talented, but to many, she's the perfect example of how vulnerability can curdle into spectacle, and how Hollywood's obsession with confession can make a tragedy feel like a brand. 28. Jared Leto. For years, Jared Leto was the picture of artistic mystery, an Oscar-winning actor, rock star and fashion icon who seemed too strange to be ordinary. From Dallas Buyers Club to Requiem for a Dream, his transformations earned critical praise, while his band, 30 Seconds to Mars, gave him cult-like fame. To the public, Leto was Hollywood's eccentric genius, the man who blurred art and insanity. But what once looked like genius started to look dangerous. On the set of Suicide Squad, he reportedly sent rats, used condoms, and disturbing gifts to his co-stars' behavior he called method acting, but others called abuse. Then came darker whispers. Fans accused him of pursuing underage girls and manipulating young women who idolized him. The eccentric artist had become the creep lurking behind the curtain. The backlash was slow but merciless. His performances stopped impressing, his band was accused of cult-like behavior, and his interviews dripped with arrogance. Hollywood, once fascinated, began to recoil. He was no longer the misunderstood outsider, just another predator hiding behind the word artist. Now, Jared Leto's name carries a chill. To some, he's still a gifted performer. To others, he's a warning, a man who mistook chaos for depth, and whose art will forever be haunted by the rumors he refuses to confront. 27. James Corden. There was a time when James Corden could do no wrong. His British charm, quick wit, and carpool karaoke segments turned him into one of the most beloved late-night hosts in the world. He sang with pop legends, made presidents laugh, and built a reputation as the cheerful everyman who brought joy to the screen. Hollywood embraced him like one of its own. Then the smiles cracked. Behind the scenes, stories began to leak tales of arrogance, entitlement, and cruelty to staff and restaurant servers. The nice guy persona dissolved as quickly as it had been built. Viral stories about him berating waiters and acting like royalty in public painted a very different picture. The same audience that once laughed with him began to cringe. The backlash came fast. Former employees, fans, and even fellow celebrities began sharing stories of his ego, his tantrums, and his hypocrisy. When he finally tried to explain himself on air, the apology felt performative, another act in a show that had gone too far. The man once loved for spreading laughter became a symbol of fake humility and unchecked fame. Today, James Corden has retreated from the spotlight, but his image lingers like a warning. In a world built on charm, nothing burns faster than forced kindness, and few fell harder than the man who pretended to be everyone's friend. 26. Lea Michele. Lea Michele once stood at the top of Hollywood's new wave of talent. With Glee, she became a household name, a Broadway-trained powerhouse, with a voice that could fill stadiums and a smile that symbolized ambition. She was the face of a generation that believed in hard work, passion, and dreams coming true. But as her fame grew, so did the whispers. Co-stars began speaking out, describing Michele as a nightmare behind the camera, a bully who made others feel small, an ego impossible to tolerate. Accusations of racism, manipulation, and cruelty spread across social media, and the world that had adored her voice suddenly couldn't stand to hear it. Her silence didn't help. When she finally tried to apologize, the statement felt hollow, written by PR rather than heart. Former colleagues continued to expose her behavior, and the public no longer saw her as the underdog but the villain. The star of a show about acceptance had become the symbol of exclusion. Even now, Lea Michele struggles to shake her reputation. She may still perform on Broadway, but in Hollywood's collective memory, she's frozen in time, the diva who learned too late that talent doesn't excuse cruelty. 25. Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill's story began as every comedian's dream. From his breakout in Superbad to acclaimed performances in Moneyball and The Wolf of Wall Street, he became one of Hollywood's most versatile actors, able to switch from comedy to prestige drama with ease. As he lost weight and started directing, he reinvented himself as a thoughtful artist, an advocate for mental health, and a voice against toxic masculinity. But behind the calm exterior was a man still wrestling with control. In 2023, leaked messages from an ex-girlfriend revealed a darker side: emotional manipulation disguised as boundaries. His carefully curated image of mindfulness and maturity crumbled overnight. The man who lectured others on respect and therapy was now accused of hypocrisy and abuse. The internet pounced. Fans turned on him. Peers distanced themselves, and every old interview suddenly sounded self-righteous and fake. His silence afterward spoke louder than any denial, as if he knew that explaining himself would only make it worse. Today, Jonah Hill stands as one of the most complicated figures in modern Hollywood. He is both victim and villain, artist and abuser, loved for his talent, but loathed for his behavior. His fall reminds us that sometimes the softest words can hide the sharpest edges. 24. Doja Cat. Few artists have risen as fast as Doja Cat. With viral hits, genre-bending creativity, and a magnetic online persona, she became one of pop's most talked-about stars. Her blend of humor, confidence, and chaos made her feel refreshingly real, a modern pop queen who didn't care what anyone thought. But fame demands consistency, and Doja's rebellion turned into self-sabotage. She mocked her own fans online, ridiculed the people who made her famous, and alienated the audience that had worshipped her. When old chat room screenshots resurfaced, showing her in racist spaces making offensive jokes, the backlash was nuclear. Overnight, her unfiltered authenticity started to look like arrogance. The chaos didn't stop there. Every new interview, every tweet, seemed designed to burn another bridge. She told fans she didn't love them, shaved her head live on Instagram, and doubled down on defiance instead of remorse. What had once been celebrated as confidence began to feel like contempt. Doja Cat remains a star, but her fame is built on tension, adored for her art, despised for her attitude. She became proof that in the age of social media, fame isn't lost in silence, it's destroyed in real time, one post at a time. 23. Russell Brand. Russell Brand once looked like the wild genius Hollywood couldn't contain, a sharp-witted comedian, actor, and social provocateur whose mix of charm and chaos made him irresistible. He conquered stages and screens with films like Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Get Him to the Greek, his flamboyant personality earning fans and critics alike. To many, he was the embodiment of the eccentric British export, funny, brilliant, and just dangerous enough to be exciting. But the chaos wasn't just an act. Over time, stories began to surface about predatory behavior, emotional manipulation, and sexual misconduct. In 2023, a major investigation exposed accusations from multiple women, describing a pattern of abuse masked as spiritual liberation. The self-proclaimed guru of truth was suddenly the center of one of Hollywood's darkest reckonings. The fallout was brutal. Networks pulled his content, publishers distanced themselves, and his online followers split between denial and disgust. Brand's spiritual monologues and political commentary, once admired, now sounded hollow, the ramblings of a man using enlightenment to excuse cruelty. Today, Russell Brand exists in exile from the very fame he once worshipped. He presents himself as misunderstood, but to most of the world, he's no longer a comedian or a thinker, just another predator who used charisma as camouflage. 22. Reese Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon built her career on perfection. From Legally Blonde to Walk the Line, she was America's sweetheart, smart, graceful, and fiercely ambitious. She transformed from actress to producer, leading the charge for women in Hollywood with her company Hello Sunshine. For a while, she seemed untouchable, a symbol of empowerment and elegance in a town full of artifice. Then the facade cracked. Behind the brand of female solidarity, reports emerged of diva behavior, coldness, and ruthless ambition. Crew members described her as controlling and impossible to please. The public began to sense something forced, that her polished feminism was more marketing than meaning. When old footage of her drunk and berating a police officer resurfaced, the internet found its proof: perfection was an act. Fans grew divided. Some defended her as a hard-working mogul. Others saw her as the exact kind of Hollywood elite she claimed to rise above. Her smile, once seen as sincere, began to feel strategic, part of the performance she'd perfected for decades. Reese Witherspoon still commands respect, but her image has changed forever. No longer the symbol of authenticity she once sold, she now represents the quiet hypocrisy of Hollywood itself, powerful, polished, and impossible to fully trust. 21. Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy Teigen built her empire on being relatable. A supermodel turned social media darling, she was funny, outspoken, and seemingly authentic, the internet's favorite celebrity next door. With millions of followers and a best-selling cookbook, she was adored for her wit and perceived kindness. For a while, Chrissy was proof that fame and humility could coexist. Then the past caught up. Old tweets surfaced, messages filled with bullying, body shaming, and even harassment toward other women in the industry. One particularly disturbing exchange showed her urging a teenage reality star to harm herself. The internet that once cheered her on now turned viciously against her. The queen of Twitter became its newest villain. Her apologies came fast, but not fast enough. Brands distanced themselves, TV deals collapsed, and her image as Hollywood's kindest troll vanished overnight. Even her emotional confessions were met with skepticism. Many believed her tears were just another PR performance. Chrissy Teigen remains active online, but the sparkle is gone. Once a symbol of modern authenticity, she became a warning of how easily power corrupts empathy. The woman who made a career out of being real was undone by the cruelest truth of all her own words. 20. Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj once ruled the music world with unmatched energy. Her flow, her confidence, her fearlessness, she redefined what it meant to be a female rapper in a male-dominated industry. With hits like Superbass and Anaconda, she became a global icon, blending artistry and attitude into pure spectacle. Her fans called her Queen, and for a while, she truly was. But power rarely comes without shadows. Nicki's career became a battlefield of feuds, with Cardi B, Miley Cyrus, Megan Thee Stallion, and even her own fans. Her fiery temper, once part of her charm, began to feel toxic. Then came the scandals, defending her husband's criminal past, attacking victims online, and dismissing serious allegations with cruelty. What had once been confidence now looked like cruelty disguised as strength. The backlash grew with every outburst. Former fans unfollowed, critics accused her of hypocrisy, and the internet labeled her a bully hiding behind a crown. Instead of evolving, Nicki seemed to double down, choosing ego over empathy every time. Nicki Minaj remains powerful, but her reign has turned cold. To many, she's no longer the fearless queen who broke barriers, she's the tyrant who burned her own kingdom down. 19. Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande started as pop sweetheart, a powerhouse voice wrapped in sweetness and charm. From Nickelodeon fame to chart-topping hits like Thank You, Next, and Seven Rings, she became the symbol of millennial pop perfection. Innocent, yet seductive. Relatable, yet untouchable. For years, she was Hollywood's darling, the small girl with the giant voice who could do no wrong. But behind the perfect ponytail, cracks began to show. Rumors of diva behavior, feuds with collaborators, and an ever-growing sense of detachment made her seem less like the girl next door and more like another entitled superstar. The turning point came when her affair with a married co-star exploded online, transforming her image overnight from heartbroken victim to Hollywood homewrecker. The backlash was instant and brutal. Fans who once defended her turned silent. Memes mocked her new relationship, and the public began questioning everything they once admired. Her silence, once seen as poise, now looked like arrogance. Every post felt curated. Every smile rehearsed a brand, trying desperately to stay lovable. Ariana Grande still fills arenas and dominates charts, but her image has shifted from pure to polarizing. Once adored for her innocence, she's now seen by many as the product of an industry that sells sweetness, then punishes women for outgrowing it. Her voice remains flawless, but her reputation? Far from it. 18. James Franco. James Franco once represented everything Hollywood admired: intellect, artistry, and ambition. He was the golden boy who could do it all: act, direct, write, and even teach. With acclaimed performances in 127 Hours, Pineapple Express, and The Disaster Artist, he earned both critical praise and cult-like admiration. He seemed untouchable, the rare actor who could balance mainstream success with intellectual depth, a man equally at home on red carpets and in classrooms. But that brilliance masked a growing darkness. Over time, multiple women, many of them his own acting students, came forward accusing him of sexual misconduct, manipulation, and exploitation. They described a man who blurred boundaries under the guise of creativity, using power and prestige to coerce rather than inspire. The artist who once claimed to challenge Hollywood's hypocrisy had become one of its most disturbing examples. The backlash was swift and devastating. Collaborators publicly distanced themselves, studios cut ties, and projects vanished overnight. Even Seth Rogen, his longtime friend, disavowed their partnership. Franco's silence only fueled the anger. Every word he didn't say became another confirmation of guilt. Today, his legacy is fractured beyond repair. Once celebrated as a fearless innovator, James Franco now stands as a warning that talent and intellect mean nothing when integrity is lost. In the end, the man who tried to master every art form mastered only his own downfall. 17. Cara Delevingne. Cara Delevingne was once the face of a new generation. With her bold eyebrows, effortless confidence, and rebellious energy, she redefined what it meant to be a model in the 21st century. She conquered runways, starred in films like Suicide Squad, and became a fashion icon known for breaking rules and laughing at expectations. To fans, she was the girl who didn't care, and that was exactly why everyone loved her. But behind the smirk and swagger was a storm quietly brewing. Her wild partying, erratic public appearances, and sudden disappearances from events began to worry fans and friends alike. Videos of her behaving incoherently on red carpets and airport tarmacs spread across social media, sparking rumors of addiction and emotional collapse. What was once seen as carefree started to look like a cry for help. The backlash came in waves: pity, mockery, concern, and then exhaustion. Hollywood moved on, fashion brands distanced themselves, and her once vibrant image dulled into tabloid tragedy. People who had idolized her independence now saw only self-destruction. Today, Cara Delevingne's story stands as a haunting reflection of modern fame. She remains talented and complex, but her downfall revealed the thin line between rebellion and ruin, and how even the brightest it-girls can fade into shadows when the spotlight burns too hot. 16. Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga rose from obscurity to become one of the most electrifying forces in pop history. With Poker Face, Bad Romance, and her fearless stage persona, she shattered every rule about how a woman in music should look, sound, or behave. She wasn't just a singer, she was a revolution wrapped in sequins, turning shock into art and pain into performance. For a while, she was untouchable, the embodiment of creativity and courage. But the same fire that built her empire also burned her image. As fame consumed her, Gaga's eccentricity blurred into excess. Her crusades for social justice and equality, once inspiring, began to feel rehearsed activism performed for applause. Whispers of manipulation, ego, and behind-the-scenes arrogance followed her like a shadow. Her close association with controversial figures and provocative religious imagery turned admiration into resentment for many. The backlash grew with every new transformation. To some, she was a chameleon of genius. To others, a calculated showman who mistook spectacle for sincerity. Her political speeches divided fans, and her constant reinvention started to feel like desperation rather than artistry. Lady Gaga remains one of Hollywood's most talented and polarizing figures, a star who turned her own pain into theater, then became trapped inside the role. Loved and loathed in equal measure, she is the modern proof that in the spotlight's glare, even authenticity can become an illusion. 15. Lizzo. Lizzo rose to fame like a bolt of joy. Her message of body positivity, self-love, and empowerment turned her into a cultural icon almost overnight. With hits like Truth Hurts and Good as Hell, she wasn't just a pop star, she was a movement. Fans saw her as a beacon of authenticity in an industry obsessed with perfection, a woman unafraid to take up space in every sense of the word. Then came the fall. In 2023, a lawsuit from her own dancers accused her of sexual harassment, body shaming, and creating a hostile work environment, the very things she had built her brand against. The irony was devastating. The internet, once filled with love for her confidence, now seethed with betrayal. Her image as the fearless champion of kindness and acceptance evaporated overnight. The backlash was swift and merciless. Former fans denounced her as a hypocrite. Sponsors paused campaigns, and every word she had ever said about empowerment was replayed with bitter sarcasm. Her attempts to deny the accusations only deepened the cracks in her image. Lizzo still has her music, her talent, and her platform, but the trust is gone. Once hailed as the embodiment of joy and inclusion, she now represents the danger of believing your own myth. Her story reminds us that even the loudest anthems of self-love can hide a whisper of cruelty underneath. 14. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was once Hollywood's ultimate outsider hero, the eccentric heartthrob who refused to play by the rules. From Edward Scissorhands to his swaggering turn as Captain Jack Sparrow, he built a career on strange beauty and artistic rebellion. For decades, he was adored by millions who saw him as the last true movie star, unpredictable, mysterious, magnetic. Then the public got a look behind the curtain. His long and bitter legal battles with ex-wife Amber Heard turned his private life into global spectacle. Accusations of violence, addiction, and manipulation painted a portrait of chaos and cruelty. Fans divided into warring camps, some defending him as a victim of false accusations, others condemning him as an abuser. The courtroom became his stage, and the world watched every act. The trials may have cleared his name in law, but not in perception. To some, he was vindicated. To others, he simply outperformed his accuser. The image of the tortured artist gave way to something more unsettling. A man who thrived on being misunderstood, even when the misunderstanding cost him everything. Johnny Depp remains a legend, but a fractured one. His films are no longer just art, they're evidence in a debate that never ends. In the end, his tragedy isn't only about love or violence, but about how fame turns real pain into public entertainment. 13. Will Smith. For decades, Will Smith was Hollywood's golden boy, charming, funny, and endlessly likable. From The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to blockbuster hits like Men in Black and Independence Day, he built a spotless legacy as a box office hero and a role model for family, talent, and humility. He seemed immune to scandal, a symbol of grace in an industry that thrives on chaos. Then came the slap. At the Academy Awards, in front of millions, Smith walked onto the stage and struck comedian Chris Rock after a joke about his wife. It wasn't just a blow to another man, it was a blow to his own image. In an instant, decades of goodwill evaporated. The world watched, stunned, as the man once called America's sweetheart turned into the face of public rage. The aftermath was brutal. The Academy banned him, projects stalled, and his teary apology failed to repair the damage. Fans, split between understanding and disappointment. Some called it human, others called it unforgivable. The night he won his first Oscar became the night he lost his reputation. Today, Will Smith's smile carries a shadow. He remains talented, but his name is now a cultural dividing line between empathy and accountability. His downfall proves that even the most beloved can fall from grace in a single moment of fury. 12. Jared Fogle. Jared Fogle was never a Hollywood superstar in the traditional sense, but for years he was a household name, the Subway guy, who claimed to have lost weight by eating sandwiches, becoming an unlikely celebrity and a symbol of wholesome success. His story was played endlessly across television, and brands treated him as an everyman hero. Then came the truth, and it was horrific. Fogle was convicted for possessing child pornography and for sexual exploitation of minors, shattering one of America's most trusted commercial icons. What had once been a story of transformation turned into a tale of predation and deceit. The smiling face in those ads became a nightmare image burned into public memory. The backlash was absolute. Subway erased him from its history. Sponsors cut all ties, and the public responded with disgust and disbelief. He wasn't just another scandal, he was proof that evil can hide behind the most harmless smile. Now, Jared Fogle sits in prison, his name synonymous with betrayal. In the hierarchy of Hollywood disgrace, few have fallen farther. His story stands as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous villains wear the friendliest faces. 11. Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer once looked like Hollywood royalty carved in marble. Tall, elegant, and effortlessly charismatic, he became a breakout star in The Social Network, and later earned critical praise for Call Me by Your Name. To many, he was destined to become the next great leading man, the perfect mix of old-world sophistication and modern magnetism. But that immaculate image shattered in the most disturbing way possible. In 2021, leaked messages revealed fantasies of violence, domination, and even cannibalism. Multiple women accused him of manipulation, coercion, and abuse. The public watched in disbelief as the handsome poster boy of prestige cinema became the subject of grotesque headlines. The charm that once drew fans now felt sinister. Hollywood acted swiftly. Studios dropped him, agents fled, and his projects were buried. What had started as whispers of strange behavior became a full-blown scandal that devoured his career overnight. The man once hailed as a symbol of class became the embodiment of depravity. Today, Armie Hammer's name lingers like a ghost, a cautionary tale of how quickly desire can turn into disgust. He was not just cancelled, he was erased, leaving behind the unsettling echo of a career that devoured itself from the inside out. 10. Kanye West. Kanye West, now legally known as Ye, was once the pulse of modern music. His albums reshaped hip-hop, his fashion lines reinvented style, and his confidence bordered on prophetic. He wasn't just a musician, he was a movement, a visionary who dared to call himself a god and nearly convinced the world to believe it. But genius and chaos have always shared a border, and Kanye crossed it. His public meltdowns, feuds, and erratic interviews grew darker with time, culminating in an avalanche of anti-Semitic remarks and conspiracy theories that shocked even his most loyal fans. The man once praised for breaking boundaries was now accused of promoting hate and extremism. The backlash was catastrophic. Adidas, Balenciaga, and countless brands cut ties, wiping billions from his empire. Concerts vanished, endorsements evaporated, and the public that once crowned him a creative god began to see a fallen prophet spiraling out of control. Kanye West remains one of the most influential figures of his generation, but his influence has turned poisonous. His story is the sound of brilliance, imploding proof that even the loudest genius can be drowned out by the echo of his own madness. 9. Marilyn Manson. For decades, Marilyn Manson reigned as the dark prince of shock rock, a living nightmare draped in leather and eyeliner. His concerts blurred the line between performance and provocation. His image embodied rebellion, art, and danger. He wasn't just a musician, he was a cultural force, the man parents warned their children about and the industry couldn't look away from. But the darkness he sold turned out to be more real than anyone imagined. In 2021, multiple women, including actress Evan Rachel Wood, accused him of sexual assault, emotional torture, and psychological manipulation. They described a world of control, pain, and humiliation. The art that once seemed theatrical suddenly looked like evidence. The industry's reaction was swift. Labels dropped him, agencies fled, and collaborators erased his name from their credits. His defiance only deepened the disgust. Instead of remorse, he spoke in riddles and denial, leaving the public to fill in the silence with rage. Today, Marilyn Manson stands as the embodiment of self-made monstrosity, a man who built his fame on horror and eventually became its truest subject. His story isn't about shock art anymore. It's about the point where performance ends and cruelty begins. 8. Ellen Page. Ellen Page's story began as one of Hollywood's brightest hopes. With her breakthrough in Juno, she earned acclaim for her raw honesty and unconventional beauty. She was intelligent, outspoken, and brave, a young actor unafraid to challenge stereotypes and take creative risks. For years, she represented authenticity in an industry built on facades. But fame and identity clashed in ways few could predict. After coming out as trans and adopting the name Elliot Page, support from Hollywood was loud, but so was the backlash. Former fans accused him of hypocrisy, claiming he used victimhood for visibility. Critics mocked his political activism, calling it performative, while others weaponized his transition as proof of Hollywood's moral decay. The divide was brutal. What should have been a personal evolution became a battlefield of ideology. Instead of being celebrated for courage, Page became a lightning rod for controversy, loved by some, vilified by others, trapped in a cultural war he never asked for. Today, Elliot Page stands at the crossroads of admiration and hatred. His courage remains undeniable, but his story reveals the cruel truth about modern fame. That even authenticity can be turned into ammunition when the world demands heroes and then punishes them for being human. 7. Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey once stood at the summit of Hollywood prestige. With unforgettable performances in American Beauty, The Usual Suspects, and the political juggernaut House of Cards, he was admired for his unmatched control, charm, and depth. He wasn't just a great actor, he was an institution, a man whose name alone signaled quality and power. But that power concealed horror. In 2017, at the height of the Me Too movement, dozens of men accused Spacey of sexual harassment, assault, and predation, some of them underage at the time. The stories painted him as a man who preyed on the vulnerable while hiding behind respectability. The father figure of prestige TV was revealed to be one of Hollywood's darkest secrets. The fallout was immediate and total. Netflix severed all ties, films were recut to remove his scenes, and he vanished from the industry overnight. His strange online videos, delivered in character as Frank Underwood, only deepened the disgust performance bleeding into pathology. What should have been a career of triumph ended in disgrace and exile. Today, Kevin Spacey's name has become shorthand for corruption and manipulation. Once celebrated for his ability to play monsters, he became one. His story is the ultimate Hollywood irony, a man who built his career pretending to have a soul, only to prove in the end that he didn't. 6. Britney Spears. Britney Spears began as pop's golden child, the voice of a generation, a star so bright she blinded the world. With Baby One More Time and Toxic, she became more than a singer. She was a cultural phenomenon. The media called her America's sweetheart, and fans saw her as innocence wrapped in glitter and melody. But fame doesn't nurture innocence, it devours it. The constant scrutiny, public breakdowns, and legal control under her father's conservatorship turned her life into a televised tragedy. For 13 years, her money, movements, and even her body were owned by others. When the Free Britney movement finally exposed the abuse, the world watched in horror at how deeply the system had failed her. Freedom came, but not peace. Her social media presence erratic, vulnerable, unsettling, made people question whether the damage could ever be undone. The sympathy that once surrounded her slowly turned to discomfort. Some still see her as a survivor. Others whisper that she's lost herself completely. Britney Spears remains both icon and cautionary tale. She represents the most painful truth of fame, that Hollywood will worship you until you break, and then sell your brokenness back to the world as entertainment. 5. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was more than a pop star. He was a phenomenon, a force that reshaped the sound and image of modern music. From Thriller to Bad, he transformed performance into spectacle, choreography into legend. To the world, he was eternal youth and boundless creativity, the childlike genius who built Neverland to escape a world that adored and devoured him at the same time. But behind the glittering gloves and moonwalks was something far darker. Allegations of child abuse began to surface in the 1990s, growing louder with every decade. Though he was acquitted in court, the release of Leaving Neverland years after his death reignited the horror, with graphic testimonies from men who said they were groomed as children. The world was forced to ask whether its greatest idol had been its most dangerous illusion. The divide was seismic. Some defended him fiercely, clinging to the purity of his music. Others couldn't separate the art from the accusations. Radio stations banned his songs, and his name became a moral minefield: genius or monster, savior or predator. Michael Jackson's legacy remains suspended between light and shadow. He changed the world, and perhaps broke it a little too. His story is the purest tragedy Hollywood ever told. The child star who wanted to be Peter Pan and ended up haunted by his own Neverland. 4. Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie once defined Hollywood beauty and rebellion. With her tattoos, volatility, and unforgettable performances in Girl, Interrupted, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, she became the most talked-about actress of her time. Fans adored her as the embodiment of freedom, daring, emotional, untamed. Then she evolved into a humanitarian, a United Nations ambassador, and the mother of a global family. For years, she seemed larger than life, both sinner and saint. But fame built on intensity eventually implodes. Her marriage and divorce from Brad Pitt, once the crown jewel of Hollywood romance, turned into an all-out war of accusations, leaks, and courtroom battles. Allegations of abuse and manipulation shattered her carefully crafted image. Some saw her as a protective mother, others as a calculating force who weaponized sympathy. Every photo, every tear, every court filing became another headline in her unraveling. The fallout divided Hollywood. Friends and colleagues took sides, and the media fed on her pain like vultures. Her humanitarian speeches lost their shine. Even her silence felt strategic. The woman once seen as unbreakable began to look like someone consumed by her own legend. Today, Angelina Jolie remains powerful, but her story feels less like triumph and more like myth collapsing under its own weight. She is the perfect Hollywood paradox, a goddess made human and punished for it. 3. Madonna. For more than 4 decades, Madonna stood as the architect of pop provocation, bold, brilliant, and untouchable. From Like a Virgin to Ray of Light, she reinvented herself endlessly, turning controversy into currency and rebellion into art. She didn't follow culture, she made it. The Queen of Pop was a force of nature who demanded the world keep up or be left behind. But time is merciless, even to royalty. In her later years, Madonna's endless quest to stay relevant turned desperate graphic social media posts, awkward surgeries, and public rants that left fans wondering where the boundary between art and obsession had gone. Her defiance of aging, once empowering, became unsettling. The icon who taught the world self-expression became a warning about refusing to let go. The backlash was brutal. Critics accused her of clinging to shock value, of mistaking vulgarity for vision. Online, she became a punchline, mocked for her looks, her words, her desperate need to be seen. Yet even in mockery, she remained magnetic. No one could look away. Madonna's story is one of glory and gravity. She changed music forever, but she couldn't escape the world she built, one that feeds on youth and chews up its idols when they outlive their rebellion. In the end, her tragedy isn't about failure, but about fighting time itself and losing. 2. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was Hollywood's most perfect product, handsome, disciplined, fearless. From Top Gun to the Mission Impossible series, he defined the American action hero, doing his own stunts and commanding the screen with surgical precision. Audiences admired his control, his intensity, his unwavering professionalism. For decades, he was the golden standard of stardom, no scandals, no chaos, just pure cinema. Then came the unmasking. His fervent devotion to Scientology, the bizarre outbursts on talk shows, and chilling stories from former church members shattered his spotless image. The Oprah couch-jumping incident, once laughed off, came to symbolize something deeper, a man lost in belief, trapped inside a machine he helped sustain. The world that once adored his confidence began to see fanaticism. Even as his box office power endured, whispers about control, estrangement, and indoctrination haunted him. Critics called him a symbol of Hollywood's obsession with perfection, mechanical, scripted, soulless. Every smile looked rehearsed, every word felt like propaganda. Tom Cruise remains an unmatched star, but his legacy carries the chill of detachment. He is both hero and enigma, the man who conquered gravity on screen, only to lose his grounding off it. Hollywood's last true movie god, and its most unsettling believer. 1. Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian wasn't discovered, she was engineered. What began as a leaked scandal tape became the foundation of a billion-dollar empire. Through Keeping Up with the Kardashians, she turned reality television into religion, transforming her family's private chaos into the most profitable soap opera on earth. She didn't just play the fame game, she rewrote the rules, teaching a generation that being seen was more important than being talented. But her genius came with corrosion. Critics called her the face of everything hollow in modern celebrity culture, the woman who commodified emotion, curated controversy, and made narcissism aspirational. Every relationship, every heartbreak, every cosmetic transformation was broadcast as content. Her empire grew as her authenticity vanished, until even her sincerity began to look like strategy. The backlash became its own spectacle. She was mocked for being shallow, accused of cultural appropriation, and blamed for shaping a generation obsessed with filters and fakeness. Yet, paradoxically, every scandal only made her richer, as if outrage itself had become her product. Kim Kardashian stopped being a person long ago. She became the algorithm in human form. Today, she remains untouchable yet unloved, the queen of a kingdom built on attention, crowned by contradiction. To some, she's a savvy business genius. To others, the architect of the cultural apocalypse. Either way, she is Hollywood's most hated success story, the woman who proved that in this era, infamy is the new immortality. Hollywood was never just a dream factory, it was a mirror, reflecting everything we worship and everything we despise. These 31 stories are not about fame, but about hunger, the craving to be adored, to be remembered, to be anything but ordinary. And in that hunger, the line between creation and destruction disappears. For every shining star, there's a shadow growing behind it. The industry that builds gods will always need monsters to burn. The audience applauds, the lights fade, and another name joins the list. Because in Hollywood, hatred is just another form of attention, and attention is the only thing that never dies.